So let's talk about Head Start. For those of you that don't know, Head Start was an early education program founded in the 1960s. Its purpose was not only to provide child care for low-income families, but it was also to provide resources for pre-K education, as well as nutrition and health checks. And because of this, it's open season for the Trump administration. And they're giddier than a redneck that won a limitless waterfowl license at the church raffle.
You guys, going camping?
For a lot of low-income people, childcare costs can determine whether a two-parent family can have a two-income household or not. And for many single-parent families, Head Start is a lifeline. Not everyone has a support for childcare amongst relatives, and ignorant statements like this.
So one of the ways that you might be able to relieve a little bit of pressure on people who are paying so much for daycare is make it so that maybe like grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more. Or maybe there's an aunt or uncle that wants to help out a little bit more. If that happens, you relieve some of the pressure on all the resources that we're spending in daycare.
Are a slap in the face to working families in this country. It's almost like the Trump administration's advice is,
it's entirely possible. All you have to do is pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
And here's why. The Trump administration is considering eliminating funding for the Head Start program, which is dedicated to free early child care services, a move that one advocate says would be catastrophic. This proposal does not reflect fiscal responsibility. It reflects a disinvestment in our future, Yasmin Vinci, the executive director of the National Head Start Association, said in a statement Thursday. Eliminating funding for Head Start would be catastrophic. It would be a direct attack on our nation's most at-risk children, their well-being, and their families. And she's not wrong. Depending on your county size and your child's age and your child's needs, you can pay anywhere from $6,500 a year to $15,000 a year. And that's just for one child. Now, let's say you have 3 children. Now you're looking between $14,000 and $50,000 a year. And this is just for someone to care for your child while you're working. This is why I said it can determine whether a family can be a 2-income household or not. Let's do some math.
Why, God? Why are you doing this to us?
So let's say you work a $15 an hour job, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. That means you make $31,200. Okay, and we'll sprinkle in a little overtime so that we can get a nice round number of $32,000. Now let's say your spouse makes $50,000 a year. Okay, you have 3 kids together, and the combined daycare requirements for those 3 kids is $25,000 a year. That's a $7,000 difference between the total money that you make and the total cost of childcare. Actually, you know nothing on this because there are dependent deductions, and then there's joint marriage filing deductions, and then there's state deductions, and shut the up. This is an under 15-minute video with quick explanations, and those deductions mean jack when we're talking about my overall point.
Don't be a dick.
After taxes, the average taken from a $32,000 a year job is about $6,500. And let's say that you're one of those actualies and you paid 0 taxes. Would it be worth it for you to work 40 hours a week on $15 an hour and only make $7,000 at the end of the year? Not factoring in transportation costs, insurance, transit times, potential vehicle repair and maintenance, and work-related expenses. Is it really worth it to work then? And that's 2-parent homes. Imagine what single-parent homes are like. USA Today cited an official familiar with the plan, and the Washington Post cited a document from the administration that outlines a rough budget for the Department of Health and Human Services over the next fiscal year. In it, Head Start funding goes to 0. While NPR obtained a copy of the document, it has not yet been able to verify its authenticity. Now, for full context and being 100% here, this was a proposal, not a definite budget cut. But the fact that the Trump administration floated the idea of zeroing out funding for Head Start is just pure evil.
That's the evilest thing I can imagine.
Trump is literally taking candy from babies. Well, the childcare, healthcare, educational materials, counseling. But yes, he's also taking their snack time. And any parent who has ever parented knows that heads will roll if snack time isn't precise and runs like clockwork.
Okay, I'm out.
And let that teach you a valuable lesson.
What lesson?
Head Start is a lifeline to making sure kids are healthy and have access to resources and activities they may not have available at home. Head Start is an early learning program founded in 1965 that sits under the umbrella of the Department of Human Health and Services. The organization provides free services for parents and children up to the age of 5, including health screenings, meals and snacks, and financial literacy curriculum. In fiscal year 2022, Head Start received funds to serve more than 800,000 families. Head Start does a lot of different things. Their meal program starts at breakfast and ends with lunch, while having snack time in the afternoon, usually after nap time. Nutritious meals are an important part of a child's development, both physically and mentally. As a teacher who teaches in early ed environments, young kids who are hungry in class tend to be the most disruptive and have a much harder time focusing. Head Start also does health checks on children, making sure they get the correct nutrition and hygiene with dental checks, making sure they don't have vision issues with eye exams, and even using pre-K educational materials to determine if children have things like color blindness or dyslexia, so they can get the help and assistance they need before starting kindergarten. Catching these things early can be absolutely crucial for kindergarten. Outside other programs like financial literacy and parenting assistant classes for parents or guardians, one of the greatest things Head Start does is early education reading. Reading is so important for the educational development of children. And we aren't talking about alphabet and phonics. I mean story time, where books are read to the children, which fosters reading habits in children at a young age. Reading books to kids at a very young age translates to better outcomes in reading when they get to school. The reading needs to be maintained as they grow, but having access to all those resources, books, and more is paramount to the educational success of children in poverty or working households. Sorry, there's a lot of conclusive studies on this. Just give me a second. I think we can all agree that reading is probably one of the most important skills to have in school to understand the subjects being taught to you. Even math books require reading to understand the subject, which is why Trump is so flippant about this. Can't have some 6-year-old showing you up in a spelling bee like some sad Billy Madison.
Bath. Bath. B-A-T-H. Bath.
Correct.
Bath, that's a little easy. Why don't you just give her the trophy?
Kayla Householder has worked at Head Start in West Virginia for the past 12 years. She makes house visits each week to a dozen families who have children ranging from newborns to 3 years old. Many of the families I work with are devastated, and they are asking questions, he said. They're concerned for what this is going to mean for the services they are receiving currently. Householder said she began bracing herself for the axe to come down on the organization in January after the election. Now, this is just the beginning. After Roe v. Wade was overturned and the states now decide, you have new mothers without support systems that will be working to pay for childcare. Not everyone has a mother or father that can just watch their grandkids, or have family members that can just drop everything to watch relatives' kids while they go to work. And as explained before, infants and toddlers are on the more expensive end of this. If you espouse pro-life positions, but think that the well-being of a child after birth is no longer your concern, you aren't pro-life, you're pro-fetus. Or as Sister Joan Chittister said,
Opposed to abortion. But I do not believe that just because you're opposed to abortion that makes you pro-life. In fact, I think in many cases your morality is deeply lacking. If all you want is a child born, but not a child fed, not a child educated, not a child housed, and why would I think that you don't? Because you don't want any tax money to go there. That's not pro-life, that's pro-birth. We need a much broader conversation on what the morality of pro-life is.
She's been encouraging people on social media to call their local congressional representatives to express their concerns and sign a petition NHSA has been circulating. Head Start was spearheaded by Sergeant Shriver, the brother-in-law of President John F. Kennedy, as part of Lyndon B. Johnson's anti-poverty programs. Shriver's daughter, journalist Maria Shriver, condemned the budget proposal on X, writing, "My dad started Head Start. Head Start has changed the lives of millions of families. Head Start's work is vital to children and working families today. This is a potential disaster. Let's not let this happen." And that's the point, to squeeze the blue-collar worker. Make them feel so broke that they only function in survival mode. And things like voting or calling your representative seem like luxuries or moot. But it's not moot. You matter. Your children matter. And if you don't have or want children, those children in your life also matter. Time and time again, we find that countries with a well-educated populace, regardless of the profession they choose, tend not to allow things like this to happen. And their societies boom. Japan after World War II, Finland, which leads the world in public education, Taiwan, France, Singapore, and many more. Where you see public education lacking, you see poorer and more rash societies. Where you see robust public education, including early childhood education, you see robust economies, and the quality of life flourishes. I'll end this piece with a quote from the late, great Frederick Douglass. Power concedes nothing without a demand. So you need to demand. Hands off our kids and their future. Hi there, this is Desperado Sensei with FOFA News. We just like to remind you to like and subscribe for our content, and also follow us on Substack. Every now and then we write pieces that don't necessarily turn out to be videos, so check us out when you get a chance. Thank you. Bye.